thought you were saying it. I thought you set me up.
Introduce you.
No. You said 3, 2, 1. Oh, okay. This was on me.
That's okay.
All right. One more time with feeling. 3, 2, 1. This is Katie Graves.
I'm Emma Dean Moseley, and this is Coffee Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Perlak. I'm the chair of the guitar department at Berklee College of Music, and welcome to another Coffee Talk. As usual, we are joined by our assistant chair, Cheryl Bailey. Hey Cheryl.
Hey there. I think we should keep that intro. We're keeping it deeper.
I love it. Good morning. And good morning, Ben Cody, our senior coordinator of the department. Hey Ben.
Hello, good morning.
And our special guests today are alumni of the guitar department, Katie Graves and Emma Dean Moseley, joining us from Austin, Texas. Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Are you drinking some coffee this morning?
We are.
Yes.
We need it.
What do you got there, Emma?
I have my Hobbit mug going on. I'm a big nerdy Tolkien lover, and it says, "I love you like a Hobbit loves second breakfast." I've got some community coffee in here.
Love that. Ooh, community coffee.
Yeah, Louisiana.
Yep.
What do you got, Katie?
Same thing, but mine's in a like a weird China goose. We found these on Facebook Marketplace, and they're from the 70s. Super cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So both of you met here at Berklee, correct? The two of you?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And that's kind of fun. Like, I think it would be good. A lot of people are kind of experiencing their first days, definitely the first days of the semester right now as where we're sitting. And I think it'd be fun for people to hear a little bit about your story and how you met and how you became the duo that you are, living and working together. So you want to take that and tell us about what you remember?
I mean, from
What we remember.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. From what I remember, I think we both started in 2019, which was like right before the big event that changed everyone's lives. And I remember going to Berklee online during those semesters during COVID and just, really missing human connection and leaving the house and, being able to meet people. And I remember I'd gotten an email somewhere in July before the semester started about Berklee's guitar department hiring for guitar sessions. Like you needed work studies to come and do all the things. And I was like, well, I'm going to need a job when I go back to school. So this seems pretty cool. And I know the guitar department's awesome. So, I'm going to go and see. And then, after I got that job and came back and working there, that's how I met Emma. And I was like, oh my God, there's another guitar player who's like, does the same weird niche thing I do and, loves all the same players I love. And I was like, well, you actually asked me if we could play together. You were like,
I didn't ask.
Yeah.
I told. Which probably wasn't very polite of me. But Katie and I had kind of some crossover in Zoom school. We were in one of Guy's labs together, but on Zoom. And it's hard to like really get to know people that way.
I only knew you from this.
Seen her play, and it's just so exciting to find a kindred spirit, in a lot of ways, but also just in being a woman and being a badass lady guitar player. And so after we came back to school and we started working together, I talked to Kim about the possibility of doing a directed study with one of both of our biggest mentors separately, Guy Van Duzer. And I walked up to Katie's desk. She was sitting at the desk that when you walk into the guitar department, it's right there on the left. And I walked into my shift and I had my backpack on and then I had my guitar on over that. And I said, we're going to do a directed study and it's going to be with Guy Van Duzer and we're going to love it and it's going to be awesome. And it's on Thursdays at this time. So I really hope you can be there. And then I think I just turned around and left.
Yeah, well, I mean, you gave me no choice.
And that was history.
That's amazing. And your duo continues.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
it does. We are working on a book, and we have done some really beautiful recordings with Randy Ruse that we're excited to release soon. And we're continuing to play in Austin and write and record in Austin, and it's turned into the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
you know, from what I remember, the recording you did with Randy Ruse was also an offshoot of a course at Berklee, the initial recording. Is that true? Could you, and I think that's good for people to hear about a little bit if you talk about it, because sometimes you think you take these classes, you take these labs, you take these ensembles, like how do they form a direct route to something? And for the two of you, there's something about that initial recording session that sparked a continuing project. Would one of you like to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first really the first tune that Katie and I took on was a monstrous project. um I think we both went into it not really thinking that it would turn into like a masterclass in arranging. You know, it's most of the time when you have that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, let's get together and we'll learn that song, or we'll learn that song, or whatever. You know, we'll learn so and so's arrangement of that song. But I think after getting in the room together and with Guy, when we started diving into material and what we wanted to work on, we realized that there weren't really existing arrangements that were doing what we really wanted to be doing, which a lot of Katie and I's common ground initially was in loving stride piano tunes from way back in the day. Jelly Roll Morton stuff, Willie the Lion Smith stuff, you know, all that. And there, you know, newsflash, there's not really a whole lot of guitar arrangements for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, um, Guy initially kind of threw a tune out there, and I think he kind of appealed to both of our stubborn nature. And he said, you know, girls, I have this tune that I've always wanted to be able to arrange, but I've never been able to figure it out. And we said, oh, well, let's try. And it was a tune called Echo of Spring by Willie the Lion Smith. And Guy, you know, basically in our first week, said, okay, each of us is going to take home you know, one of the live recordings of Willie the Lion Smith playing this tune. We're all separately going to transcribe it, and then we're going to meet, and then we're going to compare notes, and that's how we went from there. And I think the key was that Guy found something very quickly that he knew was going to inspire us to work. And it really worked. I mean, he had us hooked, and he really kept us on a good pace that was inspiring but not overwhelming to really kind of complete a project together rather than let's just learn a tune, man. And I think that that was really key to helping us realize what the potential was there for us to kind of keep arranging tunes. And so, long story short, you know, we were able to finish this monstrous tune in a semester. And that might not seem like a lot, like, oh, you know, you only learned one song all semester.
I had a lot of those. Yeah, I had a lot of those from my friends, and yeah.
You know, but we really felt like we accomplished something. And it was definitely a very proud moment for both of us.
Yeah.
So that is the recording that we initially took to Randy, and then, you know, it kind of all snowballed from there.
So Katie, this is fascinating because you made a connection with what Emma's describing with the directed study to the course that allowed you to have the opportunity with Randy. Can you talk about that aspect, about how you made that connection across courses?
Yes. I want to remember the exact details. I remember I spent a lot of time in that semester in I'm blanking on the name. It was the course, I can't remember it. It was the course you and Tronzo teach, and it was Why am I blanking on it?
It was, I think was it spontaneous
It was
composition?
spontaneous composition,
Okay.
and I had spent a lot of time in the classroom with you and Professor Tronzo, and I remember, I don't know how much of this I can say. There was a um the how do I want to say this? I'm doing recon live.
You're doing great. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm working on it. I've spent a lot of time not working on it. Anyway, so okay, so there was this project where the guitar department partnered with the film scoring department, and for a certain reason that semester it was put on hold, and there were all these students, these guitar players, who were getting ready to record and, participate in a live studio setting that Berklee, hosted. And they didn't get that opportunity anymore because of something that was out of their control. And so I remember the guitar department had put together a kind of a setting where you could go and meet with Professor Randy Ruse at Berklee and record a tune or two with yourself. I don't remember if we were doing full bands. I just remember the studio guitarists were, we had studio time now after that program. The film scoring program had been put on pause for the time being, which was super great and super exciting because now instead of playing somebody else's writing, we got to do our own stuff, and it was a super cool opportunity.
Yeah, talk about turning lemons into lemonade.
Yeah, right. And I was like,
the guitar department really pulled through.
Yeah,
with that one.
It was awesome, and I was like, oh my god, this is, was even better for me. And I remember we had gotten that email from you, and I ran over to Emma's desk this time, and I said, we're gonna go record something with Randy Reese. Okay, I'll see you there. And I was like, and that was super exciting to kind of bridge the gap and take the stuff from the directed study, and instead of having just the recordings we had made on our on our iPhones where you can hear somebody shuffling and there's someone tapping their foot and there's the neighbor next door is arguing with his girlfriend and all this other stuff, we could get an actual really good recording with somebody like Randy Ruse, who is the
Grammy Award-winning engineer.
Yeah. And we were like, oh, this is brilliant. And the thing I always tell people who, maybe personal students of mine or people who are just starting out at Berklee is I'm like, use your resources. There are so many resources. It's actually overwhelming how many resources there are.
Yeah, go to the Berklee office hour.
Yeah, go to the office hour.
Wake up at 7 a.m. and go see Tomo when he tells you to come see him because he's there early.
He is there early.
I think that's great. And I think, for those listeners who go back into the catalog, Katie actually came on and did an episode of Coffee Talk with Professor David Tronzo called Be Prepared, about taking advantage of every course and all the having the courage to go and fill your gaps in your playing and look at the things that really make you feel not so confident and turn them into strengths. And then when opportunities come and they maybe take a turn that you didn't expect, that you feel is negative, how can you turn that into a positive for yourself? And I think everything you all said it's just an example of that. Like, are you ready for what comes? And how do you work on your skill sets so that you can see what comes and maybe find opportunities? I think a lot of people feel so diffuse at Berklee, especially at this time. I'm taking 10 classes. Do they have, and you all were able to pull back and say, oh, wait a minute, this class relates to this class. And this opportunity was something I was looking forward to. And then it disappeared for some reason. But did it disappear or did it just change? And now maybe that is what leads you to where you are now. I would bet you that even though you were also excited about all the things you talked about, at the moment, you didn't know how important these things that you just talked about would be to your life now. Is that true?
100%. I think all the time about, there was this thing I said in Coffee Talks where I was talking about practicing and how it can get really redundant and you can just kind of keep hitting your head against the wall. That's what I used to tell people. They were like, where are you going? I'm saying, I'm going to go bang my head against the wall for 6 hours. Because there came a point where it kind of, it felt like that. And it shouldn't feel like that, but that's just the nature of repetition. And it's not always going to be great, but you get up and you do it because it's what you do. And it's just what you do, right? But I had said something about how when I was practicing, I always like to think about what would me in 10 years, think about that, or what would that person, who is the guitar player I want to be, who is the leader I want to be, who is the, insert some goal I have, how do I get to be that person I want to be in 10 years? And what would that person say if I was their student?
Hmm.
And I still, it haunts me. I'll be in my room and I'll work on a transcription and I'll get, it's very easy when you're working on something like a transcription where there is right and wrong in terms of what the notes were that were played, to be like, to, play something wrong and go wrong, and then, have to factory reset completely. And it's very easy to be kind of, I don't know if condescending is the right word, but it's easy to be a perfectionist and kind of hit yourself over the head with it. And then, especially when you're a teacher and when you plan on continuing to teach for the rest of your life, you start to look at that differently, and I don't know, it becomes more fun and there's less hitting yourself over the head. It's still not zero, but we can hope,
Yeah, when I'm getting frustrated about practicing my shapes and everything, gosh, I just hear Bobby's voice in my head saying, "You're gonna be grateful for this in 5 years." You're gonna be grateful for
That's
this.
right. Yeah, I love that. It sounds like even in your professional lives now, you can hear different faculty members' voices in your head. You're
Every
taking
single
things.
day.
Could you just name, Emma and then Katie, what's something that it could be something you just spoke of or something else that pops to your mind, something that you learned here in the guitar department that has a direct application and relationship to what you're doing professionally right now?
I learned to be the person in the room to raise your hand. And I think that has changed. Sorry, we just adopted a puppy, and he is very curious about what's going on up here. He's very curious about my coffee. He wants to stick his whole face in it. But I think that I naturally am an introvert, and I can be a very shy person. And being someone who grew up largely in the classical space and with one-on-one teachers who, you get to have, long-term, 10-year-long, teacher-student connections with, it was definitely a different experience for me to, all of a sudden be taking 10 classes and meeting all these different teachers that I really respected, and to kind of get into the fear mindset of, oh, well, I don't want to open my mouth and say something stupid, right? And very quickly I had to get over that, because I knew that if I didn't, I wasn't gonna be taking advantage of everything that was in front of me. And I've learned that if you have a question, probably 10 other people in that room have the same question and are just too afraid to raise their hand and ask it. And that is the way that I made as many, deep friendships with professors as I was able to. And that's how I feel like I really, got prepared. That's how I, was able to be kind of open and honest enough with myself to say, you know what, I'm not good at this thing. I want to get good at this thing, and that means I have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable until I learn it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest with my teachers about the things that I'm confused about and the things I don't understand, and not just, pretend like those really fundamental things that everyone assumes, that you've got covered are covered. And it's humbling, but it's I think it was one of the biggest gifts that I convinced myself to give myself, and early on, was just to embarrass myself and not be embarrassed about it. Like, if the teacher's asking for someone to volunteer to do something, I mean, I might as well. I'll probably learn something out of it. I don't know what yet, but I'll probably learn.
I'd love to jump in on that one, because I often say those that ask the most questions get the most answers. But the other side of this, actually, I ask a lot of students, because you guys are also, as we all are, students and teachers, right, for our whole life.
Yeah.
Who benefits the most from the question? So most of the students will say, well, the student does, but actually that's not true. The teacher benefits the most from the question. So I would have to say, if I have material that is well constructed and thought out, and it's because of all the questions students ask me.
Right.
right? So I've been in kind of in this frame of mind when talking to students is you need to get your teachers to be the best teachers they are. They can be. It's not about the teacher just coming in and you're looking to reach your potential. You reach your potential together because when you start asking those questions of the teacher, then you're asking them to teach you better. And they might have to come up with different approach for your question because not everybody learns the same. So that's why I've been on this whole sort of mantra with everybody is I thank all the students who asked me questions over the years because they've made me a better teacher. So I think that's the thing is that the students I think sometimes have this passive position. They think it's a passive thing. I'm going to go in and I'm going to learn this stuff like you're going to open up your brain and the stuff's going to pour in there. But you discovered that which is why you're continually growing in the players that you are is because you realize you had to ask the question to get an answer.
Yeah, unfortunately you do.
Yeah, there's no way around it.
And it was not comfortable for me.
No.
It was not comfortable at all.
Yeah, a friend of ours together, John Knowles, great guitarist from Nashville, he always told me, like, you just got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
Right? That's part of it, for sure. Katie, what about you? What's something that you can draw a line to that you learned here?
It is exactly in the same vein, and it's really funny because it was with Professor Jeffrey Lockhart. And I never studied with him formally, but you work in the guitar department, you start to meet the cast of characters, and it's really fun. And everybody's got their things, and you start to learn like all these really fun quirks about people. Anyway, Jeffrey Lockhart would always leave the building, pretty late, and the guitar department at that time was open until I think 10.
10.
And so I would stay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Still there. Get your cables. No, don't listen. Yeah, someone else got to do. No, I'm kidding. I was sitting and I remember I was working on a transcription actually for Cheryl, your harmonic considerations and improv class, which was amazing. That was one of my favorites. And I still think about, there was something you said too, but I'm going to continue on this story. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to get this, I think it was a Hank Mobley solo over Dig Dis. I was trying to get this one chorus and it didn't make any sense because he's playing a different instrument. He's not playing the guitar. I had guitar brain and trying to put that on the guitar was really frustrating. And so I'm sitting there and I'm really uncomfortable because I know what it is and I can sing it, but for some reason I can't put it on the fretboard. It's just not intuitive. It doesn't make any sense, which it tends to be on the guitar. And so I'm trying to figure this out and I'm like visibly uncomfortable. Like I look like I'm having a hard time. And Jeffrey Lockhart comes in and he's got his sunglasses on and he's got his hat on and he goes, "Man, you just got to sit in it sometimes." And puts his guitar away and he walks out. And that is exactly the same lesson you learned and the same lesson we were talking about. It's just you just gotta sit in it sometimes. Sometimes it is the way it is, and you just gotta hang out with it.
And the best thing is when you're sitting in it and it starts to feel good.
Yeah, there comes a point. I promise you, the practicing does pay off. It's not a scheme. There is man.
I love this, and I think that what a number of people are going to listen to this and want to know about is what you're doing now and how you got there. And I'm going to turn it over to Ben for follow-up questions on this because he's a more recent alum as well. How did you get to where you are? What are you doing right now? Where are you? And how did you find the place to land?
What a journey. Journey. Okay, so I am from Louisiana, but I largely grew up in Austin, Texas, which is where Kim and I have a lot of crossover and a lot of friends. And so growing up in Austin, I played here a lot, and there's just such a wonderful, beautiful community of musicians here and resources. It's very hot, but it's great. So after, going to Berklee and being, largely in the, country Americana, fingerstyle guitar space, among others, there kind of comes, I think, a point in every recent Berklee graduate's life where they start to think about moving to Nashville. And it happened. You know, we were both kind of separately thinking about, okay, well, what now? Because, I mean, it's not like when you graduate med school and you know you've got to go off to residency. You know, when you graduate from music school, I mean, it's like a choose your own destiny, really. You really have to be able to evaluate, you know, and feel like you have been given the gift of all of these tools, and now it's time to use them.
Yeah.
And so I Katie and I were just kind of casually talking one day, I think just in the hallway on the fourth floor in 921, and she was like, all right, like, what are we doing? And I was like, dude, I don't know what we're doing. And she was like, well, I've been kind of thinking that like eventually I've got to see what Nashville is about. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to think, but you know, got to cross it off the list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both just kind of had the attitude of you know, you just have to make a decision. It doesn't really matter what decision you make here, because there's not a wrong decision. You know, one city is not going to, you know, chew you up and spit you out more than another.
Yeah.
And it's really what you make of it. And so we had also some wonderful friends in Nashville. John Knowles is over there. Tommy Emmanuel's over there. We have some dear family friends over there, and mutually. And so we, gosh, I went back to Natchez, Mississippi for the summer, where my family is. Katie went back to Ohio. And then we met in the middle with moving trucks, and we moved into our first apartment.
Yeah.
And we, you know, took on Nashville, and we did Nashville for about 2.5 years.
It was
2 years?
No, it was a year and a half.
Oh my goodness,
year
what a
and 3
long year and
months,
a
yeah.
half. Just under 2 years, and we played and we toured and we, you know, taught and we did the thing.
Mhm.
And you know, saw Broadway and from on stage, and you know, experienced it fully. And I think a way that made both of us come to the conclusion that it was not a long-term landing place
Yeah.
for either of us. And
Yeah.
I'll kind of let you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, there came a point where we were like, okay, you know, we're doing the things, but it doesn't feel like we're going in the direction that we would like to be. I mean, we were going in some direction, but I don't think it was towards the landmark either of us wanted to. So there came a point in, like, I believe it was November of last year, where you know, we were playing and writing and, you know, sharing our transcriptions, because we do a lot of that. And
it was in New York. I was touring with an Irish act called Melinda, and we did this American tour, and it was very cool, you know, and whatever. And I called Katie from her apartment in Brooklyn, and I was like, man, we could be doing all the same stuff we're doing, just not in Nashville.
And I said, okay, well,
I have to fly everywhere anyway.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, if not Nashville, like, where? And you know, Emma goes, well, hear me out. I'm gonna make a case. I think we should go to Austin. There's amazing resources. There's a great town. It's a great group of people. They really support their musicians. And I said, you know what? If you can find us a place, we'll leave before the end of the year. Sure enough, she went and looked, and we signed for a new apartment. I think it was like December 15th, and we moved
like
2 days after Christmas.
A month later.
Yeah. So
I mean, I think you know, it was some really wild blind faith on Katie's part, but I think the throw line here was that we both at Berklee were able to develop such an incredible working friendship, and feel that the work that we started there was so important, you know, and was too important for either of us to really be living in separate cities.
Yeah.
I mean, if that kind of speaks to how valuable, you know, our time spent at Berklee, not just together, but also, you know, working together. I mean, your time at Berklee is where you can meet some of the most, you know, rewarding, friendships, but also just working relationships. I mean, you can make in your life if you just put yourself out there. And we both put ourselves out there, for sure. But anyway, so we moved to Austin earlier this year in January, or last December.
Yeah.
And it felt like coming home for me, and it's been really wonderful also to kind of see Katie really fall in love with the city too. And yeah, it's been amazing to come back and see some friendly faces and meet new ones, and we're both playing around town. I'm working on a solo project right now and recording an album for my singer-songwriter stuff, and we're both still putting together an album of duo arrangements, and we're both also teaching lessons at Austin Community College here in Austin, which is a wonderful school. And gosh, it seems like we got back and everything kind of just started falling into place. So it was definitely the right X on the map to kind of check out next.
Yeah.
Ben, what's your follow-up question to that? What do you want to know from a detailed standpoint?
So, well, I think we're very similar in the sense that what I do is kind of a very niche stylistic thing as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I went through, when I graduated, where, I mean, it's all about priorities, right? And then for me, like, I didn't want to compromise my style at all. And there's a lot of friends that I have that, were able to have some amazing opportunities, and were able to, were willing to play different, be associated with something different. For me, that just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I had to find other opportunities to be able to survive, on top of still writing and releasing music with my band and, playing out with my band. It sounds kind of similar. So I don't know if you could talk about just, what it's like being a recent graduate, and just kind of navigating, this is the music I want to do, and that's not necessarily all the opportunities that you're going to get, and just kind of how you've navited that so far.
Ben,
Yeah.
are you asking them how they make money? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
I think that some people are probably perking up their ears right now. That's why I threw that in there.
I guess
a valid
I'm asking,
question.
yeah, how do you weigh opportunities with your niche? Because this is because I
Sense of self versus the jobs available, right?
Yeah.
and it's not so much a money thing. It's more just because I found over time, the more that I've stayed true to what I do, eventually those opportunities come up where it's like, all right, I don't have to compromise now.
You are so correct.
Yeah, but it's sometimes it's a tough way of getting there. But
It's almost like you have to outwill it in a way, And I think that's kind of what happened in Nashville, where, I didn't want to make bro country.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to play bro country, and some people do, and I love that for them. But personally, I just didn't. And I think kind of something that Katie and I say we say this to each other a lot, is something that Professor Tronzo said to both of us once. He was talking about how, if he's not making music that he believes in, that he would rather go lay tile for a living. And we kind of remind each other of that a lot. And kind of to that vein, living in Nashville, I managed a cowboy hat store. So I wouldn't have to go play the gigs that I didn't want to have to play. And I mean, I think that your first year somewhere, you kind of have to, you don't have to, but I kind of had the mindset of, okay, I'm going to say yes to every gig just because I'm not going to give myself an excuse to not network.
Yeah.
But after you've paid your dues and you've done the Broadway gigs and you've played the restaurant gigs for 4 hours where you get paid $100 and nobody's looking at you, you kind of gain the ability to say no.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where I was like, okay, you know what? I want to be able to focus musically on the things that are fulfilling to me. And so I got a job. I also feel like I, learned some really wonderful leadership skills that way. And I also learned some great music industry people that way. So I guess my point is you never know where you're gonna um you just never know where you're going to network with people that could really make a difference in the craziest places you would never imagine. And I feel like because I was very specific about, my style and the things that I did actually want to pursue and the things that I was willing to take on and the jobs that I was looking for, that now, when there is a need for those things, people come to me for them because, I have focused in on, the things that I want to do and I like to do. So I think being very clear in that, and not just, taking the rock band gig for me, which makes no sense. I think that kind of, it kind of established, my style. And I think that it was worth having to go do something else, during the day to pay my bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, perspective is everything. I mean, the other thing that I tell a lot of my students, because they're like, "Oh, why am I going to go play? It doesn't pay really well. It doesn't do that." I'm like, "Well, it's what you want to get out of it, right?" And if you're, at a point where you're like, "I want to just get used to having this experience of being in front of people and doing my stuff." I think I played gigs in Nashville where I had more fun at a coffee shop for 4 hours doing background music and going, "Ooh, let's try something new," and no one cares if I make a mistake, because it's like it's all about, what do I want to get out of this? Where am I going?
Yeah.
And then also, like, rent is a real thing. And,
you got to pay it.
You got to pay it. And so the advice I give a lot of younger Berklee students, and some of my students are thinking about maybe going to Berklee, is I'm like, just wear all the different hats. Like maybe you go to Berklee as a guitar player, right? But you might not realize that you have an ear for arranging, or you're a really great conductor, or maybe you are a really great producer and you have great, ideas in the studio.
Yeah.
Like just get comfortable with wearing a bunch of different hats. And then you'll never know, like, who's going to remember you from, oh, yeah, this person mixed my, final project in this random thing. And, oh, look, we're in the same city. Hey, do you want to come do this? I remember you had some really good ideas. Like, it doesn't matter if you're the best in the room or not. It's people remember how you made them feel. And people remember, like, oh, yeah, this was a really fun time. And this person, made me feel really good about my art. Because it's uncomfortable sharing something you believe in and saying, this is something I'm working on. Because everybody's got this weird, like, it's kind of, we all don't want to look stupid, especially when you're younger. You're like, I don't want to look stupid. And the older you get, and the people who, make connections in this world, yeah, they say there is no stupid. Where, you want to be a supportive person, someone can call on, somebody reliable. I've gotten more gigs because I'll actually show up and I'm on time and I'm in tune than like being the best player in the room. Like, I think that's an overlooked thing, especially in the kind of work that we do, because there's a lot of, it can be a glorious thing. You can feel like you're on stage and you're slaying the dragon and everybody's going to remember your name and but it's like the reality of that is there are a few of those gigs, and hopefully the further along you get, the more each every gig you take feels like that. But when you're young and you're figuring things out, a lot of it is, okay, can I call you? Will you be on time? Will you have everything prepared? Will you have your charts? Can I rely on you? And then from there, you'll see where it goes. Yeah, I mean,
you wouldn't imagine how far that'll get you.
Yeah, I mean, I've had gigs where like, man, I've had gigs where like I'm not even the best guitar player on stage, but like you keep going and you show up and you say like, and the other thing is it's easy to be competitive, and I think a healthy dose of competition is an important thing in every world. But like when I'm on stage with somebody who maybe is better at a certain thing than I am, instead of being like, and getting really weird and, closed off. Emma and I do this both. We'll walk up to them. Yeah. How do you do that? How do you get the slide to sound like that and not like you're tapping a beer bottle on the strings? Like, what are you doing? And, that also opens up a huge world, because like you might be intimidated by your heroes, but a lot of the times they're just excited that you noticed. You're like, wait, you caught that?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll show you. And sometimes you get someone who's like really secretive, but usually people are really open and excited. Yeah.
It's wild. Like the largest tour I've done to date, and I grew up touring in bluegrass bands. I did the whole thing. The biggest tour I've been able to do so far, I got because of a 5-week bluegrass ensemble that I did in 2016. I met this killer multi-instrumentalist who we both went to school with, Brandon Jackson, back then, and the reason we became friends is because I heard someone playing forked deer like 2 floors above my bluegrass ensemble in 1140, and during our break, you know, I was just so curious about who was playing this tune that I loved. And I grew up in very rural Louisiana, Mississippi. So for someone else in person to be playing a song that I loved was revolutionary. In the wild. In the wild. I was like, I have to know who that person is, and I need to figure it out. Shy 16-year-old me. And so I run up the stairs during our break, and I go and find this person, and it's Brandon sitting in the corner with this fiddle just playing Forky Deer to himself. And I was like, hey, I was like you should come play with me. And we became pals, and last year when he was kind of MDing for a show that needed a guitar player and needed an acoustic guitar player who plays in a lot of alternate tunings, Ben, so niche. So niche. He was like, oh, that's Emma's thing.
Yeah.
So to your point, I really do think that there's something to, after putting yourself through the phase of saying yes to everything and getting enough stage time and putting yourself on the stage enough to get rid of the nerves, to get rid of everything, but, knowing what your thing is and knowing what your stage presence is and that kind of stuff. Once you're kind of at that point, then, choosing the gigs and choosing the projects that you want to spend your energy and your time on, and making sure that those are things that align with what you want to be doing in the future is so important. And it pays off in spades later on, even if you're like, man, I haven't played a gig in like a month, and I hate my job, and all I'm doing is practicing and making this music that I love at home. The gigs will come.
Yeah. I think
Okay, I have to put a little underline on a point, and then I know Cheryl wants to jump in here too. This is what we hope. I think what you just shared was a living example of what we hope when we say to people who come here, this is your time to learn what it is to be a colleague before you're a peer, right?
Mhm.
Like you're always working with musicians who are older than you, so you're not their peer. You are working on being their colleague. And if you put yourself in that kind of leadership mindset, then it's easier to take advantage of every opportunity. And right now we're in that end of the drop ad period. If you're not a school person and you're listening, that's when people have all their classes and they decide what they're going to keep and what they might let go of. And so many students will say, well, I think I'm going to be too overwhelmed, or I don't know if I really need this. And that's not something that you did at any point. You took advantage of every opportunity and you made the connections. And in this short time that we've been together, you've named several faculty by name who now are your colleagues, right? And they are throwing you work, and some of it, like Emma said, maybe student to student when you're a young student here in the high school program. Well, also your teachers are throwing you gigs because now you're all working together. And I know that, Emma, that was a natural, when you came to Berklee, that was a natural kind of relationship, as challenging as it is to work on being a colleague in a student role with people who are not your peers, but you're going to be working together, because you had done that your whole life to a certain extent professionally, because you had a young career. Do you have advice that either of you would give to current students who are trying to step into that kind of mindset for the first time? Because I think they're seeing how successful it is when you can do that. That's what radiates to me in what you're doing, right?
Talk to your teachers like people. I think that also now being on kind of I don't want to say the other side because are you ever really on the other side
No.
fully? You know, now also teaching, that I think that sometimes there's like a serious disconnect between, you know, students feeling like, oh, that there's just this guy that teaches me this stuff in this room once a week, and I don't know anything about him other than his name and that he plays the guitar.
Mhm.
Do some research and, you know, Google your teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, look them up on YouTube because newsflash, they're all incredible musicians and have done the coolest things ever. Like, specifically, I know he wouldn't care that I was saying this, but I remember, you know, when Katie and I first started working at the guitar department together, um, we had this wild idea because we were like, man, like I don't know who that guy is. Like someone would walk in, and so what we did is we made faculty flashcards. I think they're still there. We made them because I think we both felt like it was so important, and like it would be such an advantage for us to know, you know, who was walking in and out every day, and to be able to say, hey, you know, this thing that you did, like I would really like to talk more about that. And
Yeah.
I think that also helped foster a lot of those relationships. And I know it sounds simple, but you know, learn who your teachers are and talk to them after class and go to their office hours. And I feel like those relationships, like I mean, I was always in Bobby Stanton's office hour. Always in Bobby Stanton's office hour. I mean, gosh, there are so many teachers who I didn't get to take classes with, who I wanted to take classes with. So I went out of my way to email them and say hi. You know, I don't have you in a class right now, but I want to get to spend time with you. I mean, do you have an office hour available next week for us for us to talk about these things? You know, and to be really purposeful about it. And I think that made all the difference. But to that point, I remember being in the office, and what sparked the flashcards was Kevin Bells walked in, and we were kind of seeing him a lot more often, and it had spiraled to a point where none of us knew his name, but we had all kind of chatted with him enough to feel bad about asking his name.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what sparked the flashcards, and we would go through like the faculty page with all the photos, you know, and say, okay, does he look like that guy? No. Does he look like that guy? No. You know, and so we figured out that it was Kevin Bells, and I did some Googling on him, and one of you know, it was crazy. I found out that he was in like one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, like
Yeah, he was in Commander Cody. He's played with Commander Cody. And after that, I mean, the next time he came into the office, I was like, Professor Bells,
yeah.
I have to talk to you. And I mean, yeah, I still talk to Kevin, and you know, Kevin knows some awesome cats here in Austin and was able to connect me with people here, Bill Kirchin and Red Volkart and all of those people, and through him I've met, you know, some of my new favorite guitar players in town. And so just talk to people.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you got to jump in there. I can tell you really want to. What's on your mind as you're listening to this?
I mean, you know, this is just really, it's a great conversation. And I was thinking a while back about when you guys were talking about, you know, where were you going to move? And I think one of you said there's no wrong answer, right? But I feel that's definitely true. And if you're curious, I'm just a big fan of don't live with regrets.
Yeah.
And I just see this a lot with people that they think they want to go to New York is another place, and just do it. And if you don't like it, like kind of what you guys, you know, if you don't like it, you went there, but you mark it off your list. And then you've learned and you've grown, and then you know more about yourself and what you really want, because maybe you have this dream of what it is that's not necessarily the reality. And it's important to do that, because I have met people along the way that have, you know, said, oh, I always wished I'd done that. And it's harder to do it when you are older or your life is established in a different way. So I think that's an important thing, is to just say, if you have that curiosity, man, I need more coffee here. Curiosity and a dream of it, go check it out, and also know that a lot of people go to these places. I know a lot of people that went to New York. They said this wasn't my lifestyle. Now you can check it off the list, and then you know more about yourself, about exactly what you want to do and how you want to live.
Absolutely.
I think that's great advice.
So important. And I think, and let me let me be very honest with everyone. I mean, Katie and I have both gotten questions, from people that we graduated with in our same year of, oh my gosh, like, how did you guys already move to Nashville and then move to Austin? It's only been a couple years. I mean, how did you do that? I mean, you just must have all the money in the world, right? No, we have like 2 nickels to rub together between the two of us and a dream. And I think that my point being that, there are really no excuses. If there's something that you want to make happen for yourself, I mean, we got in a moving truck in Nashville, drove all of our stuff down to Texas, and then hopped on planes, after 4 hours of sleep the next morning, flew back to Nashville, got in our cars, drove them back down to Texas, and then unloaded all of our stuff by ourselves. I mean, we genuinely did that move, the two of us.
Yeah.
With all the things, and it was daunting. I mean, it was kind of scary.
Yeah.
It's not easy to just pick up and grab all your stuff and throw it in a truck and make a 20-something hour drive. I mean, and that's kind of, it's a lot to kind of think about taking on. But my point is just to empower people to, if there's somewhere you want to go, if there's something you want to do, I mean, it might take you a while to kind of get yourself in a place to make it happen, but it's worth taking the leap so that you don't have regrets looking back. I will never be able to say, dang, I wish I'd lived in Nashville for a couple years.
Yeah.
Now, would I do it again? No.
What you're saying is very true, because I'm kind of a person, I only believe it if I know it with my own eyes and my own ears and my own senses, right? And so, and what you're saying is kind of, if there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
People always say I have to talk about New York, but there's always a deal to be found, and there's always a place. But you have to be willing. Again, it's almost that beginner's mind also with this too. Just like you have to have a beginner's mind to come, oh, I need to learn how to read music on the guitar, or I need to learn how to compose, or these things. To not have that fear of asking the question or be the beginner. Same thing, like, I want to try something new in this new place. Well, yeah, you're probably not going to be living on the penthouse on Park Avenue when you get there, but you got to try it and believe in that will. You have to sometimes you just have to will it into being.
You got to start somewhere to get somewhere.
Well, we used to say to each other.
Go ahead, Katie.
Okay. Well, we used to say to each other all the time. This was also something we picked up at Berklee, that Kenny Werner used to say all the time, and I would talk to him. I took his effortless mastery class. He's a good time. And we were talking, and he had said, Katie, people get so caught up in, am I going to play the right note when I take my solo? Am I going to sound good? Am I going to do well on the show? Is this recording session going to go well? And he goes, the only wrong decision is no decision. He said, you got to do something. He said, you gotta make a choice. You got to do something. And then, the masters that we all aspire to be like, they stick by what they do. Like, okay, yeah, I did this. Maybe it didn't sound great.
Contextualize it.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and what I learned from being in Austin is very similar, is that, when I went there, there are so many people who said, well, if you go there, it won't lead you, back to the East Coast, or it won't lead. And obviously in my case, that is not what happened. And also, the friends of mine, that I worked with when I was your age, or your colleagues now, and we just said, like, we saw that town as such an opportunity. We're like, oh, instead of looking at it as there are not enough jobs, we were like, we could build, like, let's build our own.
Let's make something.
And let's make something. And then even though many of us dispersed, we're still so close because we had that experience of building together. And I think making something meaningful that maybe is meaningful there for other people. And then we took the meaning and brought it with us to the next place, which is also a version of success, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that groundwork that you laid, is still here.
Mhm.
That's the other beautiful thing,
Yeah.
is that even though you left, I mean, all of your efforts and everything that, that you kind of created here is still here
Oh
for,
yeah.
the for the next,
I mean, here's
it's
a
pretty amazing to
question.
see.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for saying that. And I'm thrilled by that. And I think that's true. We all make our, we all build stuff, and sometimes we build it for us and sometimes we build it for other people. But we're building. I think that's the mindset that you have that I recognize, right? Um, the other question I was excited, almost too excited to ask, is we get a lot of questions now at Berklee, especially. What role does social media and AI and that kind of thing play in your career, if any? I know, Ben, you've decided to go a route that really involves social media, but Katie and Emma, have you felt like that was necessary, or is that a tool, or is it something you've chosen that not to use at this point, or how does that work for you?
I run Katie's social media.
Yeah. Social media, I am a great shame to my generation. I'm like, I don't like I'm like, okay, it's on a screen. I'm like, if it's on okay. I think this mindset is very I prefer this mindset over another mindset. But I think if it's on a screen, it's not real. But I know it's real. But like, I've had, I don't know, when you're a guitarist and you're on social media, you get nasty comments, I guess. And even if you don't have a million followers, I got some nasty comments one time and I was just kind of like, okay. I was like, look, I don't know. And as far as AI goes, I am anti AI. I think it doesn't do anything. It is to call it artificial intelligence is a misnomer. There is no intelligence. It is artificial. It can spout out some names. I just don't. I feel like if you're trying to learn something, maybe it can jumble words for you, but there's also a random scale generator that doesn't, guzzle a bunch of water. I don't know. That's my opinion on AI in a nutshell.
Do you feel it's an unfounded fear, that sense that if you don't embrace that, you won't have a success?
I think the way that AI is set up, it is not it there's no way it can continue to function the way it's functioning right now and be a real tool. Does that make any sense? Like I feel like it's this new thing and we're all really excited about it, but I don't it's going to take years. It's not going to happen overnight. No one's going to book an AI guitarist to play a gig in a venue. There's still a need for real people and live music.
I think it's almost like creating its own weird
Niche, yeah.
in music that's really separate from anything that I am involved in.
Yeah, same.
Like I understand that, there's people who are using it to make, bands that are getting all these streams on Spotify and stuff like that, but I'm not going to be hateful about it because it's just as removed from me as Beyonce getting, a billion streams.
Yeah.
It's really got nothing to do with my project. So I don't like it. I just try to stay in my lane, and it doesn't affect the things that I think are important and the ways that I want to grow as an artist. And I just try to think of it as an other. I had to think about it a lot recently because I had to write an AI clause for in a syllabus for some of my classes that I'm teaching. And then that was also kind of an interesting way to have to think of it, because it wasn't just, okay, what are my thoughts on this and my thoughts on using it, but what do I want to allow, my students to utilize it for, like what's okay and what's not. And when I was thinking about that, I was kind of listing out like, really specifically, like, okay, here are the ways in which, I think this is, I think you can use this acceptably in my class. And one of the things that I thought of was that a lot of the things in Logic and in Pro Tools are sort of AI, like the artificial drummer and stuff like that, you know? And so I tried to come up with things that I felt like were fair because you know what? You turn on that artificial drummer and you write the best song of your life, you know, using that thing because you don't have a real drummer to play with, you know, like that's all right. But you know, but in terms of if you're writing me something, if you're writing lyrics to a song and you used AI to do it, then you know, you didn't write a song.
Yeah.
Something else wrote a song and you showed it to me. And thank you for that. But you know, it was just it was interesting to also have to think about it from, you know, a classroom standpoint of what I would allow.
Yeah. Well, the other
Okay,
thing,
go ahead.
sorry, the other thing was, I mean, when we first moved here, I was tutoring a bunch of UT students, and I would like watch them try to solve a problem and use AI, I guess, the wrong way. I didn't think about it like that. That's a really good point. But the way I had seen it was I had seen them be like, "How do I do XYZ?" And then the bot would tell them the wrong thing confidently, and I would be like, "How?" I was like, "How?" And you're just gonna trust it? I'm like, "No, you can't." Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Why
that makes sense.
why would I ask AI when I can, you know, email Guy Van Duzer?
Yeah.
Or when I can email Kevin Bells and ask
Or
him
I could
how to do
say,
it, you know, like you I guess the way that my syllabus ended up shaking out was ask a person before you ask the computer.
yeah.
And if you can't find a person to ask me who to ask.
Yeah.
That's why I landed on
You know, you all are reminding me, I think this is true no matter where you live. I loved living in Austin, um, primarily for this reason, because I felt like there was a community centric aspect of that town
that.
that I felt like that the opportunities to build things that I found involved people.
Absolutely.
And they often involved like 6 or 7 or 10 different projects or jobs or whatever. So there's a lot of, you know, how do you sustain that level of juggling?
Yeah.
But it was such an exciting time and such a fulfilling time in my life, the 12 years I was there, because I was constantly dreaming stuff up with people and putting it into action with human beings all
Yes.
the time, constantly. And that's why I think some of that stuff had some staying power. And also because it can evolve, because when
Yeah.
it's in the hands of people, now you all, like, you're all teaching at the school I taught for. And that's a new department because you're there and you're going to run with that stuff and change it. And I think that ability of it to sustain that level, that's what gives it the longevity, right? Is there's a human component in it, that I thought was fascinating. When I was doing it, it often felt a lot harder than fascinating, but I had
Yeah.
an advisor who, you know what I mean? And
Ain't
then
that just the
he told
way?
me, said, there was like a day where I was just buried, and he said, you know, you're gonna look back on this with a lot of nostalgia someday. And I was
Mhm.
like, really? What day will that be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly,
But it's true. It's actually true. And I think that there's something to be said for putting down your devices and getting out with your
Yeah.
colleagues and your teachers and just continuing to learn from people and
Yeah.
build real things that real people come to and benefit from.
Absolutely. That being said, I also realized I didn't say anything about social media. It's necessary
yeah.
evil. You know, division of labor. Katie hates doing it, but you know wants to have it done. You know, and so I help her with some of that. You know, social media doesn't come as naturally to me as I think it does. You know, some people.
Yeah.
You know, but I actually um, sat down with Tomo and he gave me some really fantastic tips and kind of like a not like a formula, but just kind of some guidelines to follow to kind of take the confusion and the stress out of it. Um, you know, because I think that in the world that we live in today, it is such a vital
It's a
marketing
tool.
tool, and it's a way to, you know, let people know that you do anything. Um, you know, so I think that if you kind of take the stress mindset out of it and just see it as an opportunity to share with the world, you know, all the cool things that you do, and to kind of use it as an online resume kind of. You know, it's just an opportunity for you to connect with other people who resonate with the thing that you do. So I try to think about it that way, even though it kind of frustrates me.
I'm working on it.
Ben, what's on your mind as we're kind of wrapping up this coffee today?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of those points, especially the social media point. Like, it's, I know I've said this before. I feel like it's kind of the equivalent of what MTV was like in the 80s, where you'd make a music video and it really wasn't the art that you were creating. It was just kind of a way to promote what you're doing. And I know, to quote Kim, and I know Kim, a lot of times you say, be your favorite guitar player. So that's kind of how I would approach. Like, all right, it's like what I want to see, my favorite guitar player put out for content, for lack of a better term. And I just have always looked at it as just another way to be creative, because, and I just try to really showcase, everything that I think that any musician should really use it to showcase whatever it is that he or she is about musically, and you have the visual side of it as well as obviously the audio side of it, and it's just a matter of just trying to get people to understand who you are as an artist, and I think it can be fun and creative if you approach it that way, and it's always just for me, and I try to remove myself enough from it where, especially at the point I'm at now, where it's like it's just kind of a part of my career now, so I post in a professional way, and then just kind of stay off it other than that.
But you're so good at it though. I feel like you are so effective at posting kind of it's so true that that's your philosophy is be your favorite guitar player, because the things that you post are the things that like I think are interesting. Like when I see that Ben posted a story, I'm actually going to click on it because there's probably something cool in there.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that if you post boring things, then you're going to feel bored and people are going to be bored. You know, but you do such a good job of making it fun. And I admire that. I think it's not it takes time and it takes effort.
It's not easy. It's really not easy. Like yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's very time consuming, and there's not a lot of payoff at first. But like I said, I just look at it as just another way for promoting, and then you kind of catch people in the web, and then next thing you know, if you can get them to listen to your records and come to your shows, then it's worth it.
Well, you've so clearly established your brand and your image also, like and you know, people click on your Instagram and they understand, you know, very quickly like exactly like what your thing is, and I think that's so cool.
For better, for worse, right?
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
Should I ask the question now that
I think the whole hour plus has been the question,
Okay.
which is just throw it out there for the audience to remember, our listeners to remember the question on your mind that Katie and Emma have been answering now for an hour is?
Yeah, so we always end the podcast with this one question. So what do you think is the question that Berklee students should be asking that they're not?
Simple, but ask your teachers how they got here.
There you go.
How'd you get here?
Beautiful. I love that. Cheryl, what's on your mind?
Thanks for coming on the show. Great to catch up with you guys again.
Yeah.
Always a joy to see y'all.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, and to work with you. I'm so thrilled that you're now on our faculty for guitar sessions, so we get to work together in that way now, and we get to get the update in person, the annual update. So thanks for doing that. And
It's the most fun ever.
It's great.
And it's so rewarding.
yeah, I think it's really beautiful that the way you've outlined just the payoff in the sheer joy and interest and curiosity of working hard. And that's the payoff of allowing yourself the gift of being uncomfortable, is that you can't get to where you two are right now unless you allow yourself to go through those challenges. And the same is true for Ben, I think, and all of us on on this Zoom. That's, if people are worried about taking a plunge and listening to this, do it. Just do it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easier to do it when you have such fantastic examples of people, you know, who are more than willing to share their experience of doing it. You know, I don't think that I would have had half the gusto or bravery to take as many leaps as I have, to kind of get where I am now if I hadn't, you know, had you all to really be so honest and open about you know, the ways that you all did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Emma. Thank you, Cheryl Bailey, and thank you, Ben Cody. We're going to hang out for a little bit longer, but for all the rest of you, thank you so much for listening, and we'll be with you all on the next Coffee Talk.